If you're anything like me, Call of Duty hasn't been relevant to you in a very long time. Like me, you probably remember the nights you spent wasting your life pub stomping, trying to hit clips, or arguing with strangers in search and destroy lobbies. Life was good, and so was Call of Duty. Before Modern Warfare 2019 effectively changed what the franchise was forever, COD was one of the most beloved and controversial video game series of all time. It saw peaks that some franchises would only dream of, and became a cultural phenomenon. So why does it feel like new Call of Duties are unable to recapture that magic? The answer isn't just skill-based matchmaking, but is something that's been brewing since I was just a dumb child. My first memory of Call of Duty goes back to the holiday season of 2007. I was 5 years old and hanging out with my older brother, watching him play the campaign of a game called Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I still distinctly remember being blown away by the graphics. Game Informer called it the most photorealistic game they've ever seen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, watching my brother play one of the most iconic video game missions of all time, all gillied up. It was around this time I noticed all of my brother's free time was being spent playing this same game, but with his friends. I was just a dumb 5-year-old, and I didn't fathom that others around the world could be or would be playing with my brother. It seemed so fun and so satisfying, apart from the occasional scream that my brother would yell from across the house. COD 4 was the first Call of Duty in a modern setting. It was a breath of fresh air, not just for Call of Duty, but for the FPS genre. At this time, most FPS games were either World War II shooters or Halo. There were other games that did the modern setting first, but Call of Duty did it to the most success. COD 4 beat out Halo 3 in sales, which at the time was thought to be impossible. One of the many reasons for the success was the multiplayer. It introduced the Create a Class system where you can customize your gun and equip special perks to help you in battle. In addition to this freedom, there was a reward. If you were to go on a kill streak, you'd be rewarded with, well, kill streaks. 3 as a UAV, 5 as an airstrike, and 7 as an attack helicopter. These would satisfyingly reward you for doing good and enable you to do better. On top of all of this, COD 4's amazing progression and prestige system kept players coming back. This game was insanely innovative and was a trailblazer in the FPS genre, something we don't often say about Call of Duty. It wasn't until 2009 that I finally got my hands on a controller that was actually plugged in to play Call of Duty. Except this time, it was a game made by COD 4 developer Infinity Ward's sister studio, Treyarch. It was made by the guys that made those old Spider-Man games, so I knew that it probably had to be good. World at War was a true war game. It didn't glorify war, and it didn't feel like an action movie where you were the hero. It took the tragedy that was the Second World War very seriously. This was a Call of Duty that just overall felt like a horror game. I saw a comment on a YouTube video with the menu music for the game, which was itself haunting. The comment read, "This is the only horror game where the monsters look just like you." I don't remember much about the multiplayer of this game, but the campaign was iconic. I'll never forget seeing my brother beat the campaign and being immediately plopped into Nazi zombies, the first zombies installment in the franchise. Something about this game had me drawn to it even years later. I think this being my first real Call of Duty that I actually played had a hand in making me a bit of a Treyarch fanboy, and rightfully so. Everything about this game's incredible and was a strong showing for Treyarch's second attempt at a Call of Duty title. But this game didn't bring anything new to the table from the fans' perspective at the time. In fact, a lot of people felt like World at War took a step back when it returns to the World War II setting. But it still sold more copies than the first 3 COD games. Luckily, Call of Duty itself hit what many would call its prime in 2009 and 2010 with the release of Modern Warfare 2.
A popular new video game actually allows you to be a terrorist and kill people. Take a look.
Okay. Oh! Oh my god! Oh! Oh my fucking god! Oh! Oh! Get this fucking... Oh! No! Get the camera! Money!
MW2 is still to this day considered one of, if not the best Call of Duty of all time. The campaign had led to a lot of controversy, specifically regarding the infamous No Russian mission, but the game's multiplayer was especially amazing. More customization was introduced with being able to pick which 3 kill streaks you'd like to run. There were 15 iconic kill streaks in this game, capped off with a game-ending tactical nuke if you could manage 25 kills without dying. Progression was also better with the prestige system returning and an added incentive to play with different perks to unlock pro versions of them that would aid you better in battle. This was the period of time where there'd be hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of players active on the game, and it was a formative time for the Call of Duty community. We saw the birth and booms of some different playstyles and content creation. Famously, this is the period where FaZe Clan, trickshotting, and sniping culture was popularized. This time period for content creation saw a lot of people just posting impressive gameplay or funny commentaries. Some of the old goats include people like Sandy Ravage, who eventually had a gun named after him in a later COD, Chris Smoove, X-Jaws, White Boy 7th Street, and C-Nanners. The game itself was absolutely busted. The infamous one-man army YouTube exploit that never got patched ruined the game for a lot of people and made getting mad at the game a lot easier for others. Speaking of which, this is the first COD where it seemed like everyone was in game chat. My brother had a mic, but the audio was still going through the TV in the living room. This is where I was exposed to a lot of the craziest arguments, different types of swear words, and a whole lot of racial slurs.
That's right. Yum 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 yum. I eat dick all day. Yum 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 yum. I eat dick. You want to fight?
It started to seem like Call of Duty was making hit after hit after hit. At this point, it was 3 years in a row of extremely successful, acclaimed releases, and a fourth was on the way. Call of Duty Black Ops was released in late 2010, and is still to this day the highest selling Call of Duty of all time. A lot of that was due to the fact that it successfully implemented all of the things that worked from Modern Warfare 2, while sprinkling in some signature Treyarch swag. I remember specifically driving with my brother to the midnight release for Black Ops at my local GameStop. Monster by Kanye West blaring in his beat-up Nissan Altima. The line went down the block, and there was an electricity in the air for what I would later consider the GOAT Call of Duty for a long time. The community as a whole, aside from snipers, were happy with Black Ops 1. It had an amazing campaign, advanced the zombie story forward while introducing main quest Easter eggs, it had an addictive multiplayer to keep players coming back year-round. Black Ops also advanced the community by introducing community-focused features like the emblem editor, wager matches, and the first ever theater mode in COD history. The guns were, and remained iconic to this day. The soundtrack was world class, and the streaks were some of the best of the franchise. And did I mention the maps? Black Ops had some of the most memorable and best playing maps in all of COD. Firing Range, Summit, Jungle, Launch, WMD, and did I mention the first Nuketown? Black Ops 1 is always going to hold a special place in my heart. It wasn't until Modern Warfare 3 that I would start to see Call of Duty burnout start to affect the community. I'm going to be upfront, I won't talk in detail about Modern Warfare 3 because I didn't play it much. I played it enough to know that I wasn't a huge fan and I wasn't alone. I found this Reddit thread from when the game came out talking about how it feels like the game wasn't different enough from COD 4 and MW2. It's all about money. They're just throwing out pretty much the same game over and over again with slight changes just to make it look like a different game. These complaints go as far back as Modern Warfare 3. It should also be noted that some of the original creators of the Modern Warfare series at Infinity Ward went through a legal battle with Activision. Jason West and Vince Zampella of Infinity Ward were fired in 2010 for breach of contract. Activision basically claimed that the duo were spies for EA and would start a studio with that company. West and Zampella thought that Activision had fired them to avoid paying substantial royalties that were owed to them after the success of MW2. Ultimately, those two and many other key figures at Infinity Ward walked out after an out-of-court settlement for a bucket load of money. They ended up founding Respawn Entertainment, who eventually created the Titanfall series and Apex Legends. So you take all of that and mix it with some balance issues and less than interesting map design, and you get probably the least talked about game from COD's 2007 to 2013 prime. I will say Sledgehammer Games did the best they could, picking up the pieces left by Infinity Ward after their implosion. In 2012, I got my very own Xbox 360. Yes, just 1 year before the Xbox One came out, but I didn't care. I was finally able to play COD whenever I wanted. Coincidentally, this is when my favorite Call of Duty of all time came out. Black Ops 2 was released on November 12, 2012, just 1 month before the world ended. This game definitely had its issues, but was the perfect game for the community both on the game and on YouTube. 2012 and 2013 was when gaming dominated YouTube, and during BO2's life cycle, it was absolutely Call of Duty's turn. At this point, all the separate communities were excelling at what they did, and you couldn't escape them in 2012. This was also one of the best sniping games of all time, and is home to some of the most ridiculous clips, trick shots, and montages that you'll ever see. The overall gunplay was top tier, and weapon classes were given the now iconic Pick 10 system. Treyarch also kept the tradition of introducing some of the most memorable and iconic maps for all of this action to take place on. Standoff, Raid, Slums, Yemen, not Aftermath, Hijacked, Express, Carrier, Cargo, just to name a few. BO2 was also the first COD set in the future, taking place in the distant future of 2025. Man. But it had innovative and memorable kill streaks that match its unique setting. On top of all this, MLG and the Call of Duty Championship was at its most entertaining. Treyarch built the game to make tournaments and championship matches easier to digest and understand with brand new tools for spectating and playing competitive games. Black Ops 2 is when I developed a love for alternate playstyles. Rather than use the best gun, I would do things like knife, ninja defuse, or try to hit clips. There were even times where me and some of my friends tried to do the Hidden Masters challenge. BO2 worked for every kind of player for one simple reason. Treyarch seemed to know exactly what fans wanted, and I can speak for almost everyone in saying that they definitely delivered in the end. After GTA 5 and its online had come out in the fall of 2013, most people were hoping that the next Call of Duty would be half as fun as Black Ops 2. Unfortunately, the next game was Ghosts. There are plenty of valid reasons that people didn't like Call of Duty Ghosts, but the cliff notes are bad maps being too big, awful color palette, I mean, look at this, terrible streaks, and performance issues. Most people didn't care for the game or even despised it to the point of hatred. Prior to Ghosts, a lot of criticisms of Call of Duty games were that they were all the same. The actual players knew that this wasn't completely true, but all of them were simple run and gun, point and shoot games at their core. At the time, each game launched with a set amount of weapons, had some DLC maps, and some buffs or nerfs to keep the game somewhat balanced. But that was really the extent of the change or innovation. So in 2014, Activision gave the studio that helped Infinity Ward finish MW3, Sledgehammer Games, a chance at making their very own Call of Duty game. Just what that wasn't quite revealed until the trailer dropped in the summer of 2014. Okay, yeah, this game is very different. Advanced Warfare brought jetpacks to Call of Duty, pushed it much further into the future, giving us things like laser guns and special abilities for the first time in COD history. A lot of people were asking for a change, and for a lot of those people, this was seen as too much of a change. Now, I myself really enjoyed AW with my friends. The multiplayer was awesome, and the exosuits introduced a much larger skill gap. But Advanced Warfare also introduced some stuff that the community would go on to despise. With Advanced Warfare came the supply drop era of Call of Duty. These supply drops included a lot of cosmetic items that enabled you to fully customize almost every piece of clothing that your soldier wears. It would have been great if they stopped it there, but there was so much more. In the supply drops, which you'd earn through gameplay after some time, you also had a chance of getting variants of the default weapons in the game. This includes the infamous Bal 27 Inferno, the ASM-1 Speakeasy, and the Moore's Quick Bolt. Some of the weapons were just specialties, but others were flat out better than the other variants, including the default ones. These guns gave you a real advantage over the rest of the player base who didn't possess these weapons. The problem was that you had a real chance of never earning these variants due to the random nature of supply drops.
Alright, next supply drop. Here we go. What are we gonna get? A pair of fucking pants!
But you could increase your chances by purchasing supply drops with real money. This is a prime example of pay to win, or at least pay to play better. Supply drops aren't the only thing that this game brought to the franchise that everyone hates though. Advanced Warfare was the first game with noticeable skill-based matchmaking. It bothered a vocal minority of the community, but most people who played COD moved back to the older games and did multi-COD in preparation for 2015's Black Ops 3, so it really didn't matter. Black Ops 3 was another advanced movement Call of Duty, and it was actually met with a great deal of hype. There was a beta for the game which wasn't common at the time, and it managed to make players eager for the full release. Once the game had released, players were treated to a sleek multiplayer experience that felt like COD was finally worthy of the next-gen title after Ghosts and Advanced Warfare. A lot of people praised Treyarch for only having cosmetics in their supply drops in Black Market, but it wouldn't last very long as Treyarch would add a ton of weapons just months after launch. I personally didn't see many problems with Black Ops 3 when I was playing it during its life cycle. I really enjoyed the multiplayer with my friends, and it was when I was really becoming the zombies fan I was always meant to be. If you didn't know, Black Ops 3 is unanimously praised as the best COD zombies game, and it's the complete truth. So whenever multiplayer got boring to me, I would just play zombies. Black Ops 3's advanced movement was different from Advanced Warfare in the sense that it was more gradual rather than jerky and unrefined. There were all sorts of advanced movement techniques created for the multiplayer, such as the G-Slide, and you could practice getting the hang of it in BO3's movement training ground called Free Run. And I actually almost entirely forgot to mention that Black Ops 3 was the first COD with specialists or heroes. Each specialist had a lethal weapon or support ability, and it was done super well in BO3. I didn't find it to ever mess up the natural flow of Call of Duty's core gameplay, which is super impressive for a first attempt. If I were to sum up Black Ops 3, I'd say it was a solid and memorable game, but certain things like the plethora of weapons locked behind supply drops definitely sucked. Like I said, I was really into zombies, so I can't speak on why the community didn't stay on BO3 for the whole year. What I do remember is that mid-2016, there was a plea from the community for COD to move away from jetpacks, exosuits, and advanced movement in general. People didn't want a futuristic sci-fi movement game. They wanted COD to return to its roots. So what did Call of Duty do? They released a trailer for Infinite Warfare. This trailer would eventually go on to become the most disliked gaming video on YouTube, all because it featured a huge leap into the future, complete with full-on space battles, robots, and, you guessed it, advanced movement. But Activision had an ace up their sleeve. Nobody was excited to play Infinite Warfare. So what did they do? They announced a full remaster of Modern Warfare to release alongside Infinite Warfare. But the only way to obtain it was to order the deluxe edition of IW. Slimy Activision. Real slimy. COD really took a hit here. 2016 was a big year for gaming in general, but shooter games were popping off especially at the time Infinite Warfare launched. Titanfall 2 was out, Battlefield had released one of their best games of all time with Battlefield 1, and it was almost seen as the good guy with Infinite Warfare being framed as the bad guy all year. Not to mention, 2016 was the year of Overwatch. It seems to me that nobody really played Infinite Warfare. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a terrible game because I didn't even reach level 10. What I do know is it just wasn't the game that fans needed at the time. That's why everyone I knew was grinding MWR. Some had even quit Call of Duty altogether and were playing games like Battlefield. I was definitely enjoying my time in MWR though. It was my chance to play COD 4 with the community. It was the perfect COD 4 experience that was completely faithful to the original game outside of a sound effect or two. This was until December when they introduced the supply drop depot. I didn't actually despise the way the supply drops were done in MWR. I won't bother explaining it in detail, but basically you could earn everything, including weapons, through actually playing the game. And it also wasn't by chance. The only thing that stood between you and a supply drop weapon was time and games played. But I don't want to go on talking so much about MWR because that wasn't the main release for the year. Moral of the story, Infinite Warfare was ignored because it wasn't what the community wanted, and we started to see the community going in all sorts of different directions. The COD community, as it was known from 2007 to 2013, had been slowly drifting away towards different games. It had happened a bit with Ghosts, with Advanced Warfare, and even Black Ops 3, but Infinite Warfare felt like it alienated a huge chunk of the fan base. COD Ghosts was the last game that displayed a player count. In the MW2 and BO1 days, it was something COD used to flex their dominance, but after it wasn't present in Advanced Warfare, it felt like they were now embarrassed by how few people were playing their games. 2017 felt like a make or break year for Call of Duty in a lot of ways. Fans were sick of Jetpack COD, and many had moved on to a whole different variety of games. PUBG was released in March 2017, and that came almost 2 years after H1Z1's wildly popular King of the Kill. We finally had the technology to have these huge battle royales, and it was slowly becoming one of the most popular subgenres in the shooter category. Quickly though, there was a ton of hype generating for COD 2017. There were rumors that it was going back to a classic boots on the ground style, and that was all confirmed when in April the revealed trailer for Call of Duty World War II released to the tune of 1 million likes, pretty much the opposite of last year's Infinite Warfare trailer. The COD World War II beta was released in late August 2017 and ended in early September 2017, right before yet another Battle Royale game came out, which I'm sure won't be any real competition going forward. There were too many problems with the game for what was considered a make or break. One thing I will say is streaks were fun, but the cost for everything was way too high given the score you'd get for every action. There was the headquarters social area that was an interesting concept, but it was disabled almost immediately because it was too broken for a good amount of time. The maps were forgettable, the game was buggy, and aside from the basic dopamine hit of Call of Duty gameplay, there was nothing here for fans to sink their teeth into for a whole year. They actually did make this game one of the better CODs of the late 2010s, months and months after launch, but it was too late. 2 months before World War II's launch, the game, not the war, Fortnite came out and it was a Battle Royale game. But the thing about it is that it was free to play. On top of already having a unique and appealing art style, it flipped Battle Royale on its head by adding a building mechanic. If you were around at the time, you probably heard a friend describe it as PUBG mixed with Minecraft. It's not the best explanation, but clearly it worked well enough for people to hop on the game because by January 2018, there were 45 million registered players. By the end of 2018, Fortnite would have over 200 million registered players. I'm sure it helped that the game was free, but beyond that, there was an undeniable magic in the air. My brother, who would quit after Black Ops 2, wanted to play Fortnite with me because I was better at building than he was. The game had that feeling that early Call of Duty had, where a game was doing something that was already established, Battle Royale, and doing it with a few fresh and innovative features, building. Fortnite popularized the method of monetization that would go on to make waves in gaming as a whole when it introduced the Battle Pass. Since the game was free, the only way for Epic Games to make money was microtransactions. It helped a lot that the way they did it wasn't as scummy as their competitors. While games like COD and Star Wars Battlefront 2 were in controversies for featuring pay-to-win, practically gambling loot boxes, Fortnite simply had a cosmetic-only item shop and a cosmetic-only Battle Pass. A variety of these factors mixed in with the simple fact that the game was great made it the game of 2018. And since you're alive in 2024, you know that it's still one of the most popular games of all time. All of this to say, Call of Duty lost its make or break opportunity and conceded to a game with a much brighter future, depending on who you ask, in front of it. I could talk about the release of Black Ops 4 in 2018 and how much hype it generated when it was announcing its very own Battle Royale. I could also talk about the backlash BO4 received for axing its campaign in favor of a Battle Royale. But I think the important thing to focus on is the fact that the game itself and Activision's support for it was just outdated. Fans got sick of the same Call of Duty multiplayer formula. Fans also looked at other games, like Fortnite. Those games would receive massive game-changing updates super often, adding new weapons, changing the map, and connecting the community. Despite COD trying to capitalize on the Battle Royale genre, Fortnite had the perfect model to edge out the dying COD formula. I didn't become a frequent Fortnite player, but I put Black Ops 4 down very soon after its release. Modern Warfare 2019. I talked at the beginning of this video about this game being a turning point for Call of Duty, and I said that because it was in a lot of ways. For starters, the condition the game dropped in was very unfinished. It almost felt like a beta. There were only 7 traditional 6v6 maps, and some fan-favorite crucial game modes like Hardpoint and Kill Confirmed were missing. I think this introduced a trend for Call of Duty, launching unfinished with minimal content and introducing content with each season the way Fortnite did. The problem with this is, with Fortnite, the content is truly new and in addition to the base game. It's also free. With games like this one, or even MW3 2023, the content should have been there from the start. And it would have been there from the start if this had been 5 to 10 years earlier. There are plenty of other things that were in every single Call of Duty game before this game that just went missing, but I can't begin to name them all. But the big issues for Modern Warfare 2019 require a little more explanation. By the way, I recognize that I sound like a hater and I'm only saying bad things, but this is mostly about OG COD, not new COD. If you want the good things about MW 2019, you could find them here. One of the big areas that needed improvements for me was map design. In the lead up to the game launching, the devs were kinda sneak dissing Treyarch and Sledgehammer's design philosophy for map design. But what they introduced was awful for the traditional, fun Call of Duty experience. It felt like maps had gone from formulaic to formless. I get that a big aspect of this game was being a true military sim, but real life doesn't always make for fun or engaging gameplay. One of the most infuriating things about these maps is that they almost encouraged camping. Modern Warfare 2019 was the first Call of Duty with opening and closing doors, which would clog map flow like the newest KFC menu item would clog arteries. There were so many places people could be hidden and murk you from, and on top of that, the footsteps were booming in this game. Your player would also blurt out callouts that the enemy team could hear without your consent. So players stopped rushing and many started camping. It felt like rushing was a playstyle that you were punished for. And for a lot of people, the only way to beat campers was to join them. Pair this with the Super Claymores from when the game launched and the super overpowered 725, and I think this is the worst thing to happen to me in 2019. And I got cancer in 2019. This was the game that introduced engagement optimized matchmaking as we know it today. I'll try my best not to spend so much time on it because everyone has already discussed it ad nauseum, but what I will say is, while I despise it, while I think it has no place in casual games, while I feel it makes progress impossible to measure, and while I think it killed alternate playstyles like knifing or sniping for casuals like me, I understand why it exists. We've established that the hardcore Call of Duty fanbase has given up on COD numerous times. We've also established that the hardcore Call of Duty fanbase is way smaller than it used to be. What's larger than the hardcore Call of Duty fanbase? Well, everybody. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, I'm being serious. There are more people that haven't played COD than who have. So why not optimize the game just for them? If a new player hops in and drops a ton of kills and satisfying kill streaks because their lobbies are filled with recruit bots, they'll stay on the game for longer and potentially get hooked. And once a new player becomes invested enough from their success and engagement, what will they do? They'll spend money on in-game purchases like cosmetics or battle passes in an already $70 game. Unfortunately, this philosophy affects every player, not just new ones. In every COD since MW 2019, engagement optimized matchmaking has turned the once casual arcade shooter into an application that tricks you into staying on it for as long as possible. The focus has shifted away from creating memorable games that are fun, build a community, and leave a lasting impact, to creating a game that will drain as many dollars as it can from anyone that touches it. Treyarch released Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War in 2020, and it was alright for the first couple weeks, but I quickly got annoyed with the game because of the consequences of EOMM. I can no longer do the things I enjoyed, like knifing or trying to hit clips with snipers. God forbid I try to ninja defuse. If I wasn't running a meta class and trying my hardest each and every single game, I would get pummeled until I'm thrown in an engagement optimized lobby. Cold War was the last COD I played. This video may have felt a lot like a summary of events or a timeline, but much of what I discussed and covered was crucial to understanding how Call of Duty got to where it is. COD 4 was the coming out party for the franchise, revolutionizing the FPS genre. Games like Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops 1 pushed the franchise to new heights. Black Ops 2 felt like OG Call of Duty's magnum opus in a lot of ways and pushed the community to all-time peaks. It's unfortunate that Call of Duty Ghosts the next year started to show Activision that we as fans can't be trusted when most of the community quit on COD Ghosts. The community asked for innovation and something different, and Sledgehammer gave us Advanced Warfare. Not only did AW revolutionize the movement in COD, but implemented SBMM and even supply drops that showed Activision that players would pay for cosmetics, among other things. Modern Warfare Remastered showed Activision that they could get away with putting microtransactions in a sacred remaster of a beloved game. COD World War II showed Activision that there was little loyalty left in the franchise, and Black Ops 4 showed Activision that they can't keep our attention over time as well as their competitors. In Activision's eyes, Call of Duty's fall from grace is our fault. Our complaints year after year were muffled by the sound of them not making as much money as they would have liked. And as their monetization practices have got more predatory, Call of Duty has been more and more profitable. That also goes for the continued use of EOMM and launching the game in an unfinished state. Why should hardcore fans only have to pay the standard price for a finished video game when they can entice players and hook them with EOMM, launch the game in an unreleased state, and drip feed all the content that was missing at launch with hints of new content here and there? Clearly, this business model has been working well for them. I can't spend year after year complaining about how Call of Duty isn't what it used to be. Call of Duty lost its identity a long time ago, and Activision proved that it has no intention of getting back to that. The 8-year-olds who played Black Ops 1 like me are in or done with college now. The teenagers that made Call of Duty what it was during the boom period, like my brother, are 30 plus, and they have families of their own. Call of Duty may be rated M for mature, but Activision knows what these games are really for. They're for young people who have the time. With their willingness to shun and shut down anything that tries to bring back or replicate the feeling of old Call of Duty, Activision has shown that they don't want people to see what those games were like. They want them to play the newest, most monetizable version. To be honest, none of this has mattered to me since my last Call of Duty, Cold War. Eventually I got to a point where I thought I just couldn't compete in a game like COD anymore. I'm a college student with a job. I don't have the time to grind the repetitive Call of Duty gameplay loop to become a better player. But one day some of my friends that I played Black Ops 2 with way back in 2012 and 2013 told me to download Plutonium on PC. What is Plutonium? It's a Black Ops 2 client that gets rid of hackers and adds a server browser, allowing old heads like me to relive the golden days of their childhood. And it was a lot of fun. Me and my friends' main game was Black Ops 2 again. We pub stomped and we played party games all night just like we used to. It was incredible, but maybe the most incredible thing about it is that I was destroying the lobbies we played. I thought to myself, maybe it's just because I'm familiar with the game, but then I thought about it. The people downloading and playing Plutonium aren't morons. They specifically seeked it out, so they were bound to be better than some Christmas noobs or an easy SBMM lobby. I found the fun that I'd missed in older Call of Duty titles and started to get nostalgic for those older games and all the old content creation boom periods. So what did I do? I emulated some of my favorite creators of the time and started to make cutcoms like the ones I grew up watching. Except this time, the stories and experiences were my own. FPS games hadn't been relevant to me in years, but I made them relevant to me again by connecting with FPS culture through the things that had originally made me part of the community. Just this time, it's as a creator. It's clear that COD has undergone a transformation that many of us never saw coming. What began as something groundbreaking and beloved went on to shape our childhoods and connect us with friends that we still remember or still talk to today. But it slowly evolved into something that no longer resonates with the original fan base. The magic of those early days, filled with politically incorrect voice chats, ninja diffuses, rage quits, it's all gone. Call of Duty, as many of us knew it, has faded into a more commercialized and disconnected experience. But reconnecting with those golden days through things like Plutonium and H2M has shown me that the spirit of Call of Duty isn't entirely lost, it's just changed. Rediscovering the fun and social aspects that once defined the franchise reminded me of why I fell in love with the game in the first place. It lit a fire under me that I thought was gone, and it inspired me to create content that pays tribute to those formative experiences. The franchise as it is today may not be for us anymore, and that's okay. We've moved on, but the memories we created, the friendships we forged, and the excitement that we felt will always be ours. Those moments that shaped us as nerds and as people, nothing can take that away. Our era may be over, but that doesn't mean the community we built has to disappear. We can still find ways to keep the spirit alive, whether it's through playing older games or creating content that captures the essence of what made those years so special. So with BO6 on the horizon, it's important to remember that it won't bring back what once was. I'm pretty excited to play BO6, but I know it can't replicate the good old days, and that's okay. The nights we experienced all that time ago made us into the people that we are today. We learned lessons and built bonds that extend beyond the screen and into our everyday lives. It's those lasting impacts that truly matter, far more than any new game could ever replicate.
What's gonna happen? I don't know. What? Shoot a gun, dog. Learn how to fucking shoot a gun. You can riot shield. What else does it? Oh, riot shield. I'm a pussy that use riot shield.
I'm coming for you, Valdi. I'm gonna find you.
Here you go, bro.
Yo!
Hello, welcome. I'm a member of an elite Black Ops squad known as the Flying Squirrels.